Chapter 34, Preparing for Mount Blanc by Justin Rosales. I didn't get a chance to spend much time with my family after returning home. I needed to get back to work to pay for my rent at college. Not only that, but I needed to begin saving up for my trip to Mount Blanc. My parents were sad to hear that I'd be returning to Europe again in just a few short months. They felt that climbing a mountain in only shorts and sandals were pushing my luck, but I was determined to go. Brooke and I drove back to State College only 2 days after I flew into Pittsburgh. The first thing I did when I returned to Penn State was visit my ex-manager at the deli. I went in the morning before the restaurant opened to speak with him. I found him sitting at the bar reading a newspaper. "Good morning, Joe. How's it going?" I asked. "Fine," he replied. Joe wasn't much of a talker. "Well, I wanted to stop in and see how you were doing. I also thought I'd see if you still had any full-time positions open as a dishwasher." "Dishwashers? No, only part-time. It's dead in the summer after all the students leave. I only need part-time people right now." "Oh," I replied, slightly disappointed. "Well, okay. Do you think you could let me know if any full-time positions open up?" "Full-time? Yes, I will." He took a sip of coffee and went back to reading his newspaper. I took that as my cue to leave. "Well, it's good seeing you, Joe." I began walking toward the entrance. "You too. Goodbye." "Wait. How was Poland?" he asked. I was surprised he'd remembered. "Oh, it was good. Had a nice time. Thanks for asking." "Glad to hear it. Take care, Justin." He gave me a quick smile and returned to his newspaper. I was overcome with disappointment as I left the deli. I had hoped to get my old job back as a dishwasher and begin making money. Working at the dishwasher was my only plan. I had no clue as to how I was going to raise however many thousands of dollars to get to Mount Blanc. On my way home, I tried coming up with other ideas. I considered working at other restaurants, but I knew that it would only take weeks before I would actually get my first paycheck. I needed to begin making money immediately. And that's when it hit me. I could apply for Penn State's summer work-study program and work in the research lab for money instead of credits. The question was, would it be enough? When I got home, I phoned my friend in the research lab and asked about the work-study program. Anthony, the graduate student that I worked under, said it'd be okay to work in the lab for money. I just needed to apply to the program via the university's website. After I got off the phone, I went online and signed up. I didn't know how much I'd be able to make, but I hoped it would be enough. While I waited for a response from the student aid office, I realized that I would also need to take 2 summer courses, 4 credits each. As I went through the course list to pick out my classes, I found only 2 that really appealed to me: Russian 1 and Russian 2. What I didn't realize at the time was that these were intensive courses. This means that each class stuffs a semester's worth of information into 2 weeks. I signed up for the courses and told myself that if everything worked out with the work-study program, I could hopefully find a way to juggle the workload. I knew that if I survived, it would all be worth it. A few days after applying, I heard back from the student aid office. I'd been approved for the work-study program for the amount of $2,500 while working full-time. This meant that I could work up to 40 hours a week, every week, until I'd accumulated all $2,500. Hopefully, it would be enough money to pay for all my living expenses, food, and cover my costs for Mount Blanc. If I were going to make all that money in time, I would need to put in 40 hours every week until I left. It was overwhelming to think about. Regardless, I knew what I wanted to do. If I wanted to climb Mount Blanc, I would need to raise the money. It wasn't just for me, it was to support Wim. We were spiritual brothers now, and I wanted to make sure that he could always count on me. I didn't spend a week in Poland just to move on when I came home. The experience had changed my life, and there was no reverting back to the old me. After I got things organized with my research lab and the financial office, I called Brooke to tell her the good news. She was happy for me, but seemed a bit sad. Apparently, her lease was ending soon, and we would need to move back home. I told her that she was welcome to stay at my house for the summer, as long as she didn't mind me being gone most of the day. She was delighted and more than happy to take me up on my offer. She moved in over the next few days. Soon after Brooke moved in, my work in the research lab began. For the first few weeks, it was easy work. Most of the time was spent organizing the lab drives. After a while, though, the work began to pick up. The principal investigator of my lab, Dr. Reginald Adams, was leaving for a month and wanted me to help take over a project of his. When he left, there was a lot of miscommunication on my behalf. The matter sorted itself out eventually, but it created a problem that spiraled downward. Regardless, I made a point to come to the lab daily, usually working from 7 to 8 hours in a row. I always made sure to stop when I had reached my total of 40 hours. As the middle of June approached, so did my Russian classes. I'd never taken Russian before, but I was always interested in learning. The language intrigued me. Starting the middle of June, my class hours were Monday through Friday, 9:05 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. with a 30-minute break for lunch at noon. This schedule threw me for a loop. I hadn't anticipated classes to be that long. Regardless, I sucked it up and rearranged my lab hours to fit my schedule. My weekday schedule now looked like this: 6:30 to 7:30 a.m., eat breakfast and go for a run with Brooke. 7:30 to 8, take a shower. 8 to 8:35, study Russian. 8:35 a.m., begin my 30-minute walk to class. 9:05 to 12 p.m., Russian class. 12 to 12:30, Brooke made me food and we would eat lunch. 12:30 to 3:30 p.m., Russian class, 3:30 to 4, eat a quick snack, walk to the research lab, 4 to midnight, work in the research lab. Sometimes if I had to miss an hour or two from the research lab, I'd make it up on the weekends to fill my 40 hours. It was a hectic schedule, and I was lucky to have Brooke staying with me for the summer. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had anyone to talk to. She made for great company. During the weekends, I would spend my time either studying Russian or making up missed hours in the research lab. Sadly, there was no time for Iceman training. My goal was to make it to Mont Blanc, and I figured I could begin training again once my Russian classes were over. The days dragged on, and I quickly grew tired of the routine. I felt like, honestly, a prisoner. Numerous times I reminded myself that I was working for a good cause, that soon I'm going to be back in Europe climbing Mont Blanc with the Iceman. Sometimes it was enough to calm me down, but other times I would lay awake at night, asking myself if it was really all worth it. I was always able to talk myself into sticking with the routine, but there were a few close calls when I came close to quitting. The day after my last Russian class ended, I received this email from Wim. Hi, Justin. The amount that you'll have to pay in Europe will be 700 euros. This includes climbing Mont Blanc and transportation from Amsterdam Schiphol Airport. You will need to arrive in Europe no later than August 4th. We'll arrive back in Amsterdam on August 11th. You'll need to bring a rucksack, sleeping bag, clothes, etc. Climbing equipment will be available at the location provided by the Charmonics group. We will prepare our own food and buy groceries before we go. We'll stay at the campsite first and then take a trolley up to 2,400 meters, 7,874 feet, to acclimatize. As soon as everyone acclimatizes, we'll make our final climb to the top. It's best to leave early, sometimes like 3 in the morning. It will take us about 4 or 5 hours to reach the summit. It is a beautiful challenge, which I'm sure you already know. Greetings, Wim. 700 euros was the equivalent of $1,014 at the time. It's pretty expensive for a college student. I was cutting it close. At the time, I was about 2 weeks away from receiving the rest of my $2,500 from the work-study program. After receiving the email, I either did something very brave or very stupid. I went online and purchased my plane ticket. The total cost was $1,190.90, a giant dent in my wallet. My reason for doing this was to put myself in a situation where I would feel like my only option was to succeed. And sadly, that was not how I felt at first. After purchasing the ticket, I severely regretted it. Take a moment and consider my cost of rent each month. Including utilities, it's about $400. And if you multiply that by the 3 months that I lived in my apartment, it's about $1,200. Luckily, some of my college loans paid for some of my housing, knocking off $600. This left me with only $600 for housing and about $150 for food. This also made me very conservative about what I ate. To save money, for weeks I would only eat pasta, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and items from the McDonald's dollar menu. It may not have been healthy, but at least I didn't starve. After subtracting living expenses and the total cost of my plane ticket, I only had about $559 after I received my final paycheck. That's a little over half of what I needed to pay Wim for Mont Blanc. With no other forms of income, I resorted to other means. I began giving plasma again, which my parents didn't like, and started selling some of my older possessions. In total, it gave me about $900, which is close, but my flow of income had stopped. 1 hour before I left State College, after I'd packed all of my things that I was going to take to Europe, I came up with one last idea. I'd been saving all of my psychology books that I'd bought over the years to use for future reading. I decided it was time to sell them back to the bookstore and use the money for the trip. I searched through my house and found 12 old psychology books. Throwing them into the bag, I made my way downtown to the bookstore, and they gave me $250 for all of them, bringing my total to $1,150. I was ecstatic. I was the happiest I'd been in a long time. All my worries were washed away, and everything was finally set up. All the effort I put forth finally felt worth it. My family warmly greeted us when Brooke and I arrived at the house. Once again, I could tell from their faces that they were worried. After giving everyone hugs and bringing my stuff into the house, my father approached me. Listen, Justin, I know you really want to climb this mountain, but I want to give you another option. I will reimburse all the money that you paid for your plane ticket and fly you to Hawaii instead if you change your mind about climbing Mont Blanc. Thanks, Dad. I really appreciate it, but this is something that I really want to do. I want to support Wim and do something with my life. And I want to be like everyone else that he trained and leave it in the past. I want to become like him. I want to become the Iceman too. So, nothing I can say will change your mind? He asked, putting his hand on my shoulder. Sorry, Dad, but I have to do this. I've committed to it. Okay, son, I love you. Just do your mother and I a favor and come back to us safe, please. We embraced each other, and I thanked him once more for caring.